Right, guys, welcome back to the Attitude Fitness Podcast. Today on the show, Mircea is back again. We're going to be talking about some peptides, since peptides are kind of more of the trending topic right now in the health and fitness space. Um, I guess I want to just start off with we have a few things we do want to talk about today with a compound called SLU-PP-332, which from what I know is supposed to be some sort of thing that helps you out with fat loss and some potentially an exercise mimetic, actually.
Yeah, interesting enough, we said peptides, but it's SLU is actually not a peptide. It's a compound that is an exercise mimetic. We just bundle them up in peptides because right now that's the quote definition for all of the research chems. But yeah, it's an interesting compound. It has a lot of studies done in mice, and very interestingly, it does work. It seems to be very I hate to use the word safe, but let's go with that. It doesn't seem to produce adverse effects. The interesting part about it is mice were given up to 100 milligrams per kilogram of body weight in dosage. Equated to humans by a few calculations, that would be probably around ballpark 8 milligrams per kilogram for human, split into two doses per day, which is a
Okay.
lot more. Like if you have a 100 kilo individual, 220 pounds, that's 800 milligrams, not micrograms. Usually you'll find SLU-PP on most sites at 250 to 500 micrograms. So you just see that this huge discrepancy between what doses are used in practice in humans and the doses that are actually used in the studies. Kind of interesting that you see a lot of benefits even at these low doses, and kind of interesting that you haven't seen a lot of negatives in rats on those very high doses. So, for example, just I just ran some numbers in the background before this podcast. Theoretically, if you would take 500 micrograms of SLU PP for daily for 20 weeks out of a year, it will probably take you about give or take 8 years to get to the same dose that was given to a rat in one day.
Holy crap.
So yeah, so honestly, the amount is stupefyingly low, and that's why it has a pretty low side effect profile. It's pretty, I don't want to say safe, but it's less likely to cause unknown problems down the line. Interesting that, yeah, it's anecdotal reports look pretty, from meh to game changer, works really well for losing fat, doesn't have the same stimulant-like effects that you would see from something like, um, let's say, ephedrine or clenbuterol. And it doesn't inhibit appetite like something, for example, sibutramine. So it also has the interesting um, exercise mimetic properties. It almost tricks the body into having the same response as it would have to exercise, which is a fascinating characteristic of the drug.
Well, the main question with that would be like for bodybuilders who already exercise all the time, like in my mind, I don't feel like that would be like as beneficial as for someone who's like really overweight, who has a really hard time exercising. Because anyone who has like, any experience personal training, understands that giving even an overweight client like a bodyweight squat is like extremely difficult, and just walking for 10 minutes on the treadmill is a lot of stress on their bodies. Would you say this has many, applications to physique competitors, or is it more so something that you would probably give to a lifestyle client who is like really overweight who needs to get in better shape?
Um, I would say both. It would be dependent on the individual. Yes, it would be very efficient for obese individuals because they don't carry a lot of muscle mass, they carry around a lot of fat mass, and there's a lot of stress on the joints from all
Mhm.
that added fat. For a very active individual, let's say a bodybuilder, it could mean the difference between doing 2 hours of cardio a day and cutting into 1 hour of sleep, or doing just 1 hour of cardio a day and sleeping that extra hour. Could also mean the difference between taking enough Clen to give you a heart attack, or having that dose and adding in a bit of SLU that gives you, let's say, a similar end result without the added stimulant effect.
Mm. I guess that makes a lot of sense. It's something you use in conjunction to
Yeah,
some other drugs. Wouldn't be like the first choice. So basically, be something that kind of like L-carnitine might help out with like increasing androgen like receptor right upregulation or something like that, or
yeah,
sensitivity. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. I believe it is actually increasing androgen receptors, not necessarily sensitivity, but upregulating them. Yeah, the carnitine.
Okay.
But yeah, SLU is good to use in conjunction. I wouldn't say like it's going to be a good standalone drug, but I think filling in some of the gaps so you don't have to take high doses of other compounds that have other more noticeable secondary effects, like clenbuterol, for example. I think that's where it actually shines.
Gotcha. Um, and so what have you seen as far as like anecdotal experience, as far as differences in fat loss, maybe even like exercise performance using SLU-PP-332?
Um, I've seen a lot of good results from it. I've seen people take, probably the majority of people end up taking 250 twice a day or 500 once. Um, and there's been noticeable improvements in body composition without changing much of anything. No changes in diet, no changes in cardio, and there were improvements in body composition. I've actually had people say that they felt more energetic, which could be, if you're developing the same adaptations as you would from let's say doing cardiovascular exercise, you feel more energetic after you get over I'm tired because I just
Yeah.
ran for 30
Yep.
minutes. Overall you do feel more energetic, more endurant. I have seen pretty positive results. I'm looking into it a lot. I know there's people who have used it more extensively and who love it, and I'm closely following bodybuilders like JP, who is using it relatively heavily. And yeah, I haven't seen or heard anybody say negative things about it. The worst thing I've heard is like, yeah, it didn't do much for me. But yes, I would say it's definitely not as potent when it comes to fat loss as, let's say, your typical clenbuterol, for example, or ephedrine, but it's much less problematic. It doesn't give you
Hmm.
cramps. It doesn't cause the tremors. It doesn't elevate your heart rate. Um, it's less stressful on the body, if you will. So I think for people who are already doing way too much training and need to lose weight, for taking way too many stimulants and need to lose weight, I think shifting over to SLU PP332 instead of just adding in more cardio, more ephedrine, more clenbuterol would be a smart idea, or at least an interesting endeavor.
Yeah, I like that approach because it's basically it's kind of like with every single compound there's basically it's a parabolic. I think that's the structure of
Hmm,
it. Shape to dosing, and once you kind of get to a certain dose, like you're not really getting that much more out of it, but you could be having lots of different secondary effects come in that are not exactly what we want to have happen. And then you would throw in something else like this that would basically have some synergy and help out with the drugs potentially working a little bit better as a whole.
absolutely. Absolutely. I like it. I have to say I was skeptic. Um, but yeah, I like what I'm seeing, and I would like to see more data on it, and a lot more people taking it, the results, and then blood work to compare. Up till now,
Hmm.
it looks promising, but yeah, as with all of these new research chemicals or peptides or whatever you want to call them, um, a lot of them seem pretty promising.
Perfect. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with that, or do you think we covered it?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary.
Cool. Let's talk about NAD plus now. from what I have seen of this, is mostly like an anti-aging compound. Helps out with like memory and cognition.
Yeah, it's a coenzyme. It's interesting that right now it's being heavily used in the longevity crowds. The PRT clinics are now basically putting it into their, PRT package. You have, your test, your Arimidex, your HCG, and now they're adding in NAD and probably GH. So it's becoming kind of like a staple component. Um, it helps with so many things, including neurotransmitter synthesis. So it helps create more neurotransmitters. It helps with mitochondrial health. It helps with immune function. It's it's a coenzyme that is, I believe, it involved in about 400 mitochondrial processes in the body. So it is
Mm,
very, very important. It's very used. Um, the NAD plus, I believe, is the oxidized version, and I think the NADH is the reduced version, if I'm not mistaken. It's a vitamin. It's actually derived from vitamin B3, nicotinamide, I believe it is.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, the current protocols that I've seen are either you have a loading period, IV, believe it's high dose, 500 to 750 milligrams IV, and then you get like a 500 milligram top up every 4 to 6 weeks. Most people take it as a IM or sub-Q injection, and the doses are anywhere from 20 to 50 to 100 um, milligrams a week per shot, 2 to 3 times a week. And that's kind of like a long-term chronic treatment, if you will. So somewhere between 20 to 100 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a week, sub-Q or IM. That's usually what you'll see more of the longevity crowd living in. Not a lot of people do it IV. Not a lot of people want to bother with going, and getting the quote, mega dose at an IV clinic. Most of them just take it, sub-Q with their daily test injections or whatever they do. Yeah, and honestly, I see a lot of good results. Just like with the SLU compound, I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about it. People report a lot of interest, just a lot of anecdotal reports saying like something very interesting. They feel better. They feel lighter. Like they feel like, oh, I don't feel as heavy. Not necessarily in body weight, but they have a
Eventually.
yeah, mentally and physically. They also feel better physically. They feel younger, basically. I think that's the safest way to say it. And I think that's why it has such it's gained so much popularity in the longevity crowd. It does induce this feel good state. And honestly, I don't see any problems with it. The problems are mostly related to the fact that it kind of stings. It's not a super comfortable injection. Kind of like the L-carnitine choline mixing.
Yeah.
It kind of stings a bit. Causes a bit of inflammation, but works really nicely. I've had a lot of people just have only good things to say about it, and right now it's available in a lot of TRT clinics, and also available online in a lot of the what's it called, research chem peptide stores or whatever they call themselves now. And yeah, it's a pretty good compound. I'm in favor of it. As always, when it comes to performance, bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, etc., it's never going to replace anabolics. I don't
Yeah.
think that there will be, this is what everybody was missing. But for just, general lifestyle clients feeling better and also maybe protecting the mitochondria against the abuse we're putting our bodies through every day as bodybuilders, powerlifters, athletes, whatever. Yeah, I think it has a role to play.
I think also like for people that just are like have like a lot of like mental stress on like a regular basis. So I think that's like part of like aging, right? It's just that you get so much mental stress, and then it's harder to deal with it, and then that could help out with also like potentially like recovering from workouts if you don't feel like as beat up mentally from really trying hard. Especially if you are going through a really stressful period of life where you're low on calories and you just don't feel as mentally there. Because like when many people who train will definitely attest that it's just as much mental as it is physical with your effort and execution. Um, and as far as like taking like the IV doses, honestly, I know it sounds like people are like, oh, it's expensive. I'm like, well, it's basically the exact same price as it would be if you were to do it like sub Q yourself. Um, and usually it's like really like relaxing to go in there and get that done. Like if I'm going to get like carnitine or any other peptide done, like a high dose, I'm going to go to peptide clinic or IV clinic and just get that done. And it's really easy. But as far as like for powerlifting and like the whole mental component of like the neurology, I know that like there are some other compounds like Semax and Selank that do help out with
Hmm.
that mental fatigue. What makes NAD like really that much different though from those?
Very interesting that you asked that. I think it's the fact that it is involved in neurotransmitter synthesis. So you have a lot of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. This helps synthesize those neurotransmitters. I think that that's where it shines because you're basically, yes, you're using external choline, but you're also adding in other compounds like NAD plus to help your body synthesize neurotransmitters. And when it comes to, expressing strength as a power lifter, it has to do a lot with neurology.
Right.
The drive, the focus, even in bodybuilding with the mind muscle connection, there's a lot of benefits to having, a properly function neurological system. Hell, I know a lot of bodybuilders that say that their mind muscle connection is a lot better when using DHB because that's a compound that is very heavily involved in neurology.
Right. Well, cool. So as far as like practical application, who is somebody that you would suggest that they consider taking NAD plus or adding that to their regimen?
Um, Again, this is one of those things that anybody can take. Where I would say is people that are undergoing a lot of stress, whether that is physical or mental stress. The quote rich Wall Street, stockbroker asshole. Like I think they're a perfect candidate for NAD plus. Um, Older individuals, definitely, and also people that are under a lot of stress and are more into the whole health and longevity kind of aspect of things. I think it's not as I don't think it's such a big performance enhancer as it is something that is more of a health preservation compound.
Mm, I like that. Something that I had recommended to my dad was like taking some alpha GPC because my family has a history of like, and also great creatines. My family has a history of dementia and Alzheimer's. What's like one of is that could this actually maybe help out with like preventing that aging or like prevalence of that disease? Do you think?
Yes, I think it would play a role in that. And also, alpha GPC is a very good form of choline for that purpose. It gives a very sharp hit of choline. If you're looking for more neurological benefits, I would go with cytocholine, CDP choline. I think that is
Okay.
much better for that purpose. 500 milligrams a day of that CDB choline would be a good dose to start. And I actually am using that right now, in combination with something else that I'm experimenting with. And
I would love to talk about
these
that
stuff
actually.
works.
Tell
Mhm.
me more tell me more about that.
Well, choline again, all, all your body, your brain runs on the cholinergic system. Every time you have a very mentally demanding or even physically demanding, neurologically demanding task, you're starting to deplete your choline stores. Your body's reaction to that is it dumbs down activity, even intellectual one, and you get the brain fog. So it kind of preserves choline while you start synthesizing more choline. There, comes into play things that help you synthesize neurotransmitters. That's when things like acetylcholine or injectable choline chloride or the CDP choline or even alpha GPC come into play to replenish the choline pools. With mm, uh, um, neurodegenerative diseases, things or things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, that is a heavily studied field. And I think that if you look at them closely, a lot of the Alzheimer medications are very cholinergic on the cholinergic system. They all work pretty much around that cholinergic system. So
Mhm.
choline is, for all intents and purposes, probably one of the best things you can do for overall daily mental function and also for preventing as much as possible things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, etc.
Yeah, that can also help out with like all the like just like fatigue just in general. So I feel like so much of
Yeah,
like people complain about fatigue is just related to like just being like so mentally stressed out. So we have so many like different um and stressors in our daily life that just take so much of our mental energy and focus. And that's very new to right now versus like, and like before the internet was a thing, honestly, like people kind of just did their work and just went home and didn't have as many like decisions that they had to make across the entire day. So I think that's probably like why that would be such a beneficial supplement for most people.
absolutely. And I think right now, mental fatigue, mental stress is probably more taxing than actual physical stress in today's
Yeah.
environment. Like, honestly, I'd take a day of chopping wood versus a day of just, things that would just tax my brain nonstop. If you have a hard day at work, you'll sleep it off. You'll be fine. A day of just dealing with a lot of mentally intensive shit, yeah, you'll be toast the next day. You'll have brain fog and headaches, and that will take a bit of time to actually dissipate.
That would be like a sign of like you would probably need maybe like choline supplements.
Yeah. And especially in today's environment, everybody's, using a lot of stimulants. Those help you bypass your body's natural defense mechanisms and help you tap into more choline stores. So you're
That makes it
draining
even
your choline
worse.
stores. Absolutely. You're
Uh,
anything, amphetamines, caffeine, you're not you're not fixing the problem. You're just momentarily accessing more of the precious resources that your body's trying to conserve.
it makes so much sense because like again, like I tell all my friends, I'm like, like I could do like a hike all day and like yeah, I'd feel physically tired, but like whatever. It's like all like the mental stress of like, creating content as a coach and then, having to, listen to your clients and make sure that they're being taken care of, writing programs. And, that's not unique to just coaching. Most jobs have a very high mental component. And that is like the entire reason, like, for like all the exhaustion is like people don't, most of the times the people aren't working blue collar jobs right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I do believe that right now there's a lot of white collar jobs that are aging you faster than blue collar ones. You're just literally aging yourself just from all the added stress and all the mental fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always funny when people are always like, let's just like sleep more. And it's like, it's not possible when you have a lot of things going on. Like, it's just not.
Yeah,
I know there are some peptides that can help out with that. Like Delta sleep inducing peptide. Do you know anything about that
yeah,
one?
yeah. DSIP, delta sleep inducing peptide. Um, I'm not extremely familiar with it. I've have looked at it. I have a few people that have used it, and a lot of people report. Well, again, it's on a spectrum. There's the people who say like they didn't get jack shit, and there are the people who like I've never had sleep this good since I was a fucking baby. Like it depends. Some people say that it literally changed their lives and the quality of their sleep has improved dramatically. I think it's more of a depends if that's the problem with your sleep. Because sleep is a very complex topic. If if it's a certain aspect that requires that tool, then yeah, it will be a game changer. If your sleep is shit because you're dead tired, but you also slam a bunch of stimulants and you pass out, but your heart's still racing like crazy while you're
Yeah.
sleeping. Yeah, you will sleep 8 hours, but you'll get like that shitty restless sleep, and you wake up more tired than you were when you went to bed.
Mm. Yeah, it's always really interesting. Like, I know I was like actually looking at something like by review conversations, like sleep was like kind of one of my yeah, I was more interested in learning a little bit more about it. And Lyle was kind of saying that like with all these like sleep supplements, it's like, kind of like they either out of miraculous or they do jack
Hmm.
shit.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Most of these new research candidates or peptides or whatever you want to call them, with few exceptions, that's pretty much it. You have people that say that they did jack shit, or people that say like this a miracle drug.
Hmm.
Very interesting because
No,
with anabolics you never get that. Like they work, just some people get more benefits and other people get more negatives. But with these drugs,
yeah.
it's a lot of hit and miss.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, it's like I kind of was like all depend on your own neurochemistry. What's been
Yeah,
interesting is like I take notes on like personality types and like what types of supplements seem to work better for different personality types, especially with like sleep. And it's like there's some form of information like pre-workout that just hit really hard for people like me who are super type A and like neurotic and high strung, and for other people that are like really laid back, it doesn't done nothing. It's really
yeah,
strange. So. Cool. I think we had some covered some good topics here. Want to wrap things up. But thanks for coming on and talking about this as usual. If people want to hire
absolutely.
you, where should they head?
It's my name, Mircea, MIRCA BJR at Instagram. That's where you find me. That's also my at gmail.com, my email. You can find me there.
So I'll put that in the show notes, and you guys should reach out to him if you need help with your training, diet, or PEDs. Obviously, he knows what he's talking about. So, talk to you guys in the next one.